So Speedsters, how did I feel about The Flash Season 6 Episode 2 other than, they absolutely killed it. Now honestly, this was such a very good episode paired alongside Arrow as they now air on the same night, and if you're wondering about my Arrow review, it will be up in a few hours time from when you're seeing this video release. But holy crap, due to Crisis dawning upon all the shows, it is offering a quality enhancement on the already ramped up adjustments that Eric Wallace is making to this season. That is just making this all seem like how could any fan not enjoy what we're witnessing unfold episode to episode, even though we're only on episode 2, but it just seems like things are going to be unreal from now on. But anyway guys, before we get into the details of this episode, and this episode threw many at us, for example a map of the multiverse from Jay Garrick, which literally gave us quite a few Easter eggs, and we will break that down later, but go ahead and like this video if you do go on to enjoy it guys, as it really shows your support for the reviews, and apart from that, subscribe for more Flash and DC TV and just general comic book videos like this. This episode consisted of a few different stories, which follows through with how we knew that we'd be getting a more segregated chunk to episodes, which is great. I mean, for example, the meta of the week, if you will, was introduced when we had Cecile, who began to prosecute a meta known as Allegra Garcia, who got her abilities to manipulate radio waves from the particle accelerator explosion. Now, I don't find myself feeling or saying this very often, but this meta of the week story actually maintained my interest in a good way. Now, I'm not shitting on every single meta of the week previous storyline, but you guys know what I mean. You know what I mean? I'm normally just like, like a lot of people are about, metas of the week, but this one was decent. But all in all, I enjoyed the Allegra character, and I just knew from the second that she was talking to Joe in the CCPD about being an aspiring reporter that she would be one of the new employees that they mentioned Iris would be getting for her newspaper. It was just kind of very predictable that way, but in addition, I'm looking forward to seeing more of. And as for her sister Ultraviolet, well, that music fighting scene was definitely something else, and also when Barry was running into a power blast kind of wave, it as cool as what I get what they were going for with that, it was kind of just like unnecessary. Like Barry could have just stepped to the side, and it was very self-destructive. Maybe you think that's nitpicky, but I don't know, it did kind of feel really pointless to me just running into it like that. But hey ho, I don't know. Now you're probably thinking, can we just get to the Barry cool Crisis stuff? But just before we do get to that, we did already get teased with something that you guys should definitely keep an eye out for the rest of the season, which very well could lead into the second half of season 6, and that new big bad villain we'll be getting. So when Ultraviolet was found in this vegetative state, we were shown a photo of someone who went to see her, and on his suit we saw a logo which very much so resembles the Black Hole Criminal Organization. Now some of you may or may not know, but in the Flash Rebirth comics, this is an organization that tries to study and harness the power of the Speed Force, so it's going to be interesting to just see how this will lead into the back half graphic novel 2 described season, which I don't expect to be copy and pasted, but it could very well lead to a speedster villain to some degree, or maybe even tie into all of those Godspeed like cloney kind of people, even though they're not clones, they're just random people, but all of those Godspeeds that Team Flash was capturing and apprehending over the summer. Like maybe these are little tests for Barry Allen from the Black Hole organization, but this is all just speculation at the end of the day, so definitely bookmark this in your brain, and I just guess keep an eye out for it, because it's going to be interesting, as I keep saying, to see where this goes. Seeing Killer Frost this episode, who has taken a nanite camouflage cocktail, as explained by Cisco, to allow her to blend in and live her life without scaring people, was just great. Some of you may know I've been really looking forward to seeing a more Killer Frost focused character season, if you know what I mean, because Caitlin's kind of taken the back bench. So even though she was annoying quite a few members of Team Flash, this is all about her trying to figure out what she wants to like do with her life, and she isn't the most kind of socially ace person at mixing in with other people, so that art gallery kind of scene was pretty funny. And I feel like the way the episode tackled her and her interactions with other members of Team Flash, especially Cisco, calling all White Walkers, was just really, really funny. It was also pretty neat getting that flashback to, I believe, that photo her father, Icicle or Thomas, drew of Killer Frost, and she tried to make a accurate representation of that, but yeah. But on to the main stuff of this episode, and my God, was this cool. As we all know, this saw Barry wanting to travel to the day after he is supposed to have disappeared, but he runs into a wall of antimatter clogging up the Speed Force, which, as most of you should know, destroys any positive matter on contact, which is essentially what the anti-monitor is, sending out into the multiverse. What more can I say then? This is just such a really cool thing to see teased so early on, and we're already getting such huge crisis setup. And if you thought that this antimatter reference was cool, then I hope you're up to date with Arrow, because yeah. Now, as we all knew from the various promo and trailers for this season, that Barry would be going to Earth 3 to see Jay Garrick and his wife Joan, who of course resembles Barry's mother. Now, it was just great seeing a map of the multiverse that Jay Garrick had drawn up. This had so many cool references because they had loads of different Earths and loads of little notes from Jay Garrick, who's been kind of like mapping out how the antimatter has been, popping up here and there. So as for these references that I blatantly saw popping out was Thaddeus Brown, which was named near Earth 51, who is Mr. Miracle in the comics. We had a reference to the home of the Freedom Fighters, and it seems as though it says that Earth 15 could be destroyed, with 1986 being in brackets, which is just interesting to speculate about. I feel like something obvious in my brain is poking out at me, but maybe one of you guys can mention something that I'm maybe missing to do with that in the comments down below. We also got other references to like the Council of Wells. If you guys remember, we had that very quick cameo from Wells the Grey in the previous season, who is obviously a Gandalf spin-off of a Wells. Now, Earth 18, I believe it was, has great tequila according to Jay Garrick, and heck, they even have Earth 30, which is a vegan-only Earth, which some of you may not love, but there's literally a vegan Earth out there in the multiverse. Now, this also gave us a tease as to what happens in Arrow's premiere episode for season 8 with regards to the antimatter headed for Earth 2 with that big blatant arrow there, but that's also all I'm going to say about that for those of you who haven't seen Arrow's latest episode or just the first episode of season 8. Now, this is when we got onto the very cool stuff, because Jay had built a neural hyper collider which harnesses neural electricity and transfers it across superluminal particles. This is such a mouthful to say, but as a result of this, it projects Barry's consciousness across space-time and thus past the antimatter wall, which he couldn't physically breach himself without, I guess, just being erased. Now, these next moments, I just loved seeing a glimpse of Crisis, and I feel like the way they gave fans a look at this in the episode was just terrific. This saw the red antimatter waves blast across Central City, multiple heroes getting engulfed and wiped from existence, such as Killer Frost, Ralph, even Cisco in the Vibe suit, which is interesting. Make of that what you will. We also saw Iris, and of course, the speedster Barry Allen himself making that sacrifice, running and essentially disintegrating in order to save billions of lives. Now, I thought as a result of Barry seeing all of this, it was really cool to see how this bled into the rest of the episode, such as when everyone is laughing in this one scene towards the end, and so is Barry, but then he kind of gets this like realization moment with how his mind kind of reverts back to this default like thinking stream of that being the impending crisis, and you just see this wave of emotion just wash over his face like a ton of bricks. Now, this also happens through Barry, who returns to Iris after witnessing those billion possible different realities, in where only one that he saw would be saved through him dying, and so he essentially concedes to the idea of it. And it was quite hard seeing the Flash like this, because as the Monitor said in the last episode, one of the Flash's greatest qualities was that his determination is boundless, and from what we saw of Barry here is just a completely conceding and accepting Barry that he can't really comprehend how it's going to go any different way. It was literally like to Iris, I saw a billion different realities and there's only one where things are going to work out. And Iris is typically like, but what about the billion and first and the billion and second? But one of my favorite scenes in the episode was between Joe and Barry. Now, these scenes never fail to impress me in any episode or any season. Joe puts things in such a way where it kind of adds up with what Barry is saying, and where we get one of the greatest Papa Joe lines yet, in how he says, "If we don't make the choice to die, we would never choose to do that. But when we hear the call of duty, we're willing to make that sacrifice, and that's not giving up. That's what you call resilience." So despite Iris initially being in a bit of denial about this, they're really trying to set up for the audience that Barry Allen will die, and he very well may, even if it is just to return somehow or some way after the episode that will probably see him return in January. I can't imagine that they're just going to leave it with him dying, and then, we have to wait for the Christmas break, and then boom, Barry Allen somehow returns. Now things are even like a more of a ride or die thing, with Iris actually accepting it as well, and even saying, let's make what we do next count. down, and it's time to prepare the team for Crisis, maybe even a world without the Flash. However, we do know from other teases that the team won't want to accept this either, with Cisco trying to figure out ways for Barry to live still. So I'm really looking forward to see how the different members of Team Flash specifically react to this horrible news. Now, as for Bloodwork this episode, if you were to take away the Crisis setup this episode, or just, the Crisis story at all in the seasons of all the shows, all we got in terms of main plot stuff this episode was those two little teases. One being Bloodwork trying to get more dark matter from a dark matter fueled gun, and as a result of that, he kills this guy with his newly obtained Bloodwork powers, with the ending scene being him doing a biopsy on the victim, while simultaneously discovering that he has reanimated him, which sets up glimpses of what is to come with Bloodwork. And I wouldn't be surprised if this guy is on the loose in the following episode, which makes the whole Team Flash and Bloodwork storyline collide a lot more, because we haven't had that reveal that, he is the big bad yet to face Team Flash. So I think we're going to get more and more into that, and probably what is to be a more Bloodwork focused episode next week. But I do have to wonder though, that even though this segregated stories or like different structured approach to the episodes in season 6 with this new showrunner Eric Wallace is a such better way to handle things, with this episode being a shining example. Whereas beforehand, in previous seasons of The Flash, this episode would have more or less consisted of the whole team tackling this Allegra Garcia and her sister Ultraviolet, and perhaps just only at the end teasing the main plot with like Bloodwork, which as a result has made some episodes of a season feel really lackluster and wasted. And you guys know what I'm on about there, when we're just sometimes just teased with a little bit of the main villain in 2 minuscule scenes, and it's just mostly some kind of average meta human of the week storyline. But I do want to pose the question that is this that much more engaging just because of Crisis on Infinite Earths? And the answer to that is, well, of course, yes, because it's like a no-brainer. Obviously, this is a lot more fascinating with the gravity and the stakes that is being shown with the impending Crisis. And just it throws a lot into the mix that does make things so much more entertaining for other self-explanatory reasons. So now I'm just kind of imagining season 6 without this impending Crisis storyline. And I feel like it would be, as I said, we would have had this episode tackle mainly the meta storyline, with only so much as 2 little teases of Bloodwork being the main villain for the first half, like we did see in this episode. And I can imagine that some fans would have complained about this if, this was, how the episode would have went. But of course we didn't mind, because we have the Crisis stuff, and that's so cool. Now also, just to put this out there, I'm not saying that even without the Crisis storyline that I didn't notice a definite shift in the way the characters were being handled, because they were handled differently and for the better, with Ralph, Iris, Cecile, and Cisco and the others just handling what was going on in the episode and being just filmed differently to traditional ways that the Flash has approached things, and that's definitely cool to see. So I just think that's something to think about there. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, some of you might say, well, and it's kind of true, it's neither here nor there, because you can just be like, with what I'm pointing out here, well, so what? The fact is that we have got a Crisis storyline, and we haven't just got what we had before, so why are you even thinking about this? And I just think it comes to my attention because the new storyline post-Crisis on Infinite Earths, which starts episode 10 with the new villain, according to Eric Wallace in an interview, it's just going to be interesting to see what this season will feel like for the Flash without the Crisis build-up like we saw in this episode, which made it feel like everything was so broken up and refreshing, and in doing so, great. But overall, Speedsters, episode 2 was absolutely fantastic. As I mentioned in the first lines of this video, they absolutely killed it. It was much better than the first episode, and I said the first episode was off to a great start, but this episode, man, it was truly what not quite the pinnacle, maybe it is, but what the Flash can really be. But as I mentioned, it's just interesting to think about. As I said, maybe it's neither here nor there, but take away the Crisis storyline, and the reason why I feel like this is a relevant question is because that is going to be over by, after the crossover has ended. So what is 6B going to be like, do you think? Aside from that, guys, like this video if you did enjoy it, subscribe for more Flash videos like this. As I said, my Arrow video will be up at some point in the following hours, following this video. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you, Speedsters, in the next video. Goodbye.